So here we go, weekly plan for the week of September 8th. And, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that we're coming into that critical 53.85 spot. And you could really extend that range. We had on the way down, we had on the way back up, talking about low 5400s down to this 53.85 is a key area on high time frames. Volume profile. This 96 and 3/4 was the August 12th close. Actually, no, high, I'm sorry. And so this is going to be a key spot. You can see we held just off there after hours. Now, this after hours bleed is pretty important to me. It wasn't done like no volume either. I want to say there was like 80,000 contracts traded in this second to last half hour. So it sort of reeked of some forced selling. So I've said before, never really a good look. And it could be indicative that the selling is over or nearly over. We don't want to get too optimistic and just assume that's the case and it's time to go to the moon. It seems like, on my feed, I've been on there a limited amount of time, on X this weekend, been pretty busy. But, what I've seen it's just been a lot of absolute hopium, crazy indicators and divergences and, all of these things looking for reasons why we're just going to slingshot back to new highs. And, maybe we do, but I don't think we should operate under that assumption here because, it really is just a critical spot. And that's what's most important, not to me, any indicator or, hidden divergence or any kind of, frankly, silliness. Like this is it, right? This is the spot. And so, if we lose the spot, it's going to get disgusting. The after hours capitulation does make me think, we could be close to relief. So the question is it over? Because, some dumbass like sold 80,000 contracts or whatever it was, after the bell, like really you didn't have time to sell, during the day. And so now I'm going to zoom back out to the 30 because I just want to show this bleed off because it was important. And on NQ, it hit like an absolute kind of line in the sand as well. So, we're back on the 30. And before we talk about, scenarios trading higher, trading lower, I want to remind you again, in that week off the lows, we had, again, I want to say it was Tuesday. I mentioned this in the podcast I did. There was a day where we bled out after hours, just like this, looked like forced selling to me. And, that night there was like a little bit more, again, seeming very forced, either into BOJ or on BOJ. And then after that, it was just, moonshots. We did have data, right, to sort of help things in that case. But it again, like once you get the selling becoming more and more and more forced, that's when we start to look for a possible swing low. And so like early in the week, there was clearly a lot of selling up in here, right? And it was mostly like controlled. It was balanced and it was just sell and sell. And I do feel like there's a participant that needs to get out, potentially a large fund. Why, doesn't matter. My speculation is left over from, the early August situation, and somebody was just carrying some bags that they need to get out of, and they need to get out of in a bad way. And so the selling kind of got sloppy after NFP, right? And you can see that in some of the thinnish structure on the way down, right? We just sold straight down. It's not like we, high volume and then low volume and then high volume. We did finally put in some consolidation here. And that's where we talked about, the sellers were gassing out and we took a couple of longs off here, whatever. But, sure enough, we get that after hours selling. And so, we'll keep an eye out for that. And so scenario one is, we do see a pop and we reclaim, this 54.10 and we do some kind of rotation in here, between 32.5, 34.5, I'm going to kind of use for this week. And you can see why it's at value area low. It was kind of these two pops up here. We're kind of closer to 34, 35. And so you can use 32.5, whatever, the range, whatever you like for your charts. So if you do see that and we are able to pop back up over 54, 32.5, 54, 35, and we start to consolidate in here, I do feel like 45 is a pretty key level. So we could pop up here and fail and then back down. But if we do start making higher highs and higher lows, say 45 doesn't matter a whole lot. And, 34 has flipped to support. We're probably going to come up here into the 74 to, I called it 80, I think, on the plan, but 79 and 3/4 ish. And this is the first spot that I, potentially be looking for a fail. I consider it kind of minor. A lot of this was like overnight volume. Maybe sellers come in and they get kind of aggressive here. And at the beginning of the week, we kind of fill out volume here and we leave, kind of if you were to combine, 2 weeks, you leave a little bit of a low volume node here. I could see that this would be, indicative of trapping to me, and some savvy sellers that want to leave all of these buyers from in here stuck. So that's what that would look like to me. If we do clear this spot, then, again, I'm still looking here in this 87.75 to 90 spot that carried, Thursday's low. And then you really start getting into some supply. So really, again, at any time, seller can step in and leave these buyers all trapped and force them to liquidate. So if you start to see defense in here in that 87.90, like even up to maybe like 97 or so, then, these buyers are forced with a decision if they are still in the tape, right? They might have to puke. We come right back down here. Now there's too much pressure and 85 doesn't hold. So, these are kind of your key rotational spots. I get really careful in here. I mean, if we do kind of base above, in these spots, and we come up here to this like little supply area, 14 was kind of where, we were bid most of the week, and somehow this doesn't smash us back down and we're sticky in here, then we could come up, sort of into the main part of this distribution, maybe rotate towards the top. But like, again, I mean, there's a lot of supply up in there from, a couple of days. A lot of people were loading calls ahead of NFP. And so I don't want to make the assumption that, just because we, get up in here, that everything is okay. I think we see choppy two-way trading. It's not until you really get up above, 55.65 and still 55.71 that we've talked about the whole time. Like, until you reclaim this and you're making higher highs, higher lows above it, then this was an absolutely enormous trap, and we probably have firepower for new all-time highs. And so you really kind of need to wait, right? Like, before you have some kind of strong bullish bias, because I really feel like any kind of trading higher, like I'm probably looking to short, ideally like 54.90s, something like that. I get a little bit more careful and neutral in here. But if I start to see trapping from sellers and they are, really preventing an opportunity for these buyers to get out at break even, then I start to press on the short side, because I have the expectation that they are then going to liquidate and we come right back down into here. So again, looking for shorts as close as I can. If we get all the way up here, a little bit neutral in here and careful. And then if we kick back down and out, I'm definitely short. And, if we can't even get back above, 54.32 half to 54.34 half, then, I don't see how this holds again, to be honest. So like, if we do get all the way up here above 55.71, I mean, that's already like quite a move in a week. And if that happens, then we'll cover in the daily plans, that's fine. But let's talk real quick about trading lower. So, I mean, the first thing to keep in mind is, the reclaim of 51.85, basically on the way up off the 51.22 hold, that opened up 53.85. And really the same thing is true in reverse. So, not saying that we're definitely going to 51.85 if we lose 53.85, but it's important to understand that the potential is there for this to get absolutely disgusting. This wasn't really the best week of structure. Like, we kind of had sort of like a balance in here, but we really didn't. We didn't actually take out a prior day's low on cash hours on any of these days. We had this one nasty sell side day, and maybe that's a little bit of a saving grace, but we kind of already back tested some of it here, and maybe some of these trap sellers got out, and the structure on the way up from, really like 52.30s, 52.40s was absolute shit. So you may remember we talked about this on the weekly plan in here, where, if we lost 56 after the look above and fail of 53.85, that, things could get ugly. So we opened the week, we weren't above 53.85 yet. After hours, or overnight, pre-market, whatever you want to say, and we came down low of day for this day, and then ultimately this week, right, for Sunday, the week of the 11th, which we've been talking about, is 53.47 3/4. But 53.56 was really kind of, top of this range in here that we had traded in. And so losing that brings into play this 53.26 spot. I'm on all hours here, but this was key on RTH. 53.30 is also, effectively the 0.618 retracement of the move off the lows to these recent highs. So this was key under 53.26. Maybe I had 24.75 on the way up. I don't recall exactly, but call it 26, right? That opened this 53.06. And then it's just, single prints and green candles and, no solid structure, to work with. And so very, very easy to come all the way down here into the 5230s, 5240s. So to me, persistent weakness, lower highs, lower lows, below 53.85, cracking 53.56. It really, really, really brings in the risk of coming all the way down here, which gets you back to the year-to-date volume point of control. So, if you lose this key spot again on high time frames, then you're targeting, for sure, 52.40s. And there's really just not much of a reason that we can't, rotate all the way back down to like 51.85-ish, 51.96. During this week of August 4th, you can see, the volume profile just gets really thin down here. So there wasn't a whole lot of action down here. And so, maybe you call it 5,200, 51.96. But again, point being, below 53.85, like this whole week comes into play, just like we saw with the week of August 11th. The whole thing came into play during last week. So, I mean, we'll see, and play what is in front of us. But below 53.85, I am not even like a little bit bullish at all. And I would absolutely have to see some kind of a multi-day balance form and then break that to the upside to think that we might be fighting a swing low. So I am not going to knife catch at all, because we could take out these lows over the course of like a week or two. And like, you never know like how nasty things are going to get. If this forced selling is nowhere near done, then there's no reason we can't get this all in 1 week. I don't expect that. It's not my base case like at all, like even a little bit, but it's something that, we need to be aware of if we do lose 53.85. To summarize, we could potentially play a quick long if this pops up in here, off of the after hours low, but I'm generally looking to short pops up into here, get neutral here, and pretty explicitly short until given a reason not to be below 53.85. So that's pretty much it for this week. Actually, I will pop over to NQ just real quick. So NQ, very similar situation, bit of a mess of a chart. I just haven't had time to clean it up after using it for a few weeks. But the interesting thing is kind of similar to ES. Like we had this old box range on NQ from a number of months ago. It was 633, so 18,633 at the bottom to 967 half. And I mean, look where we failed on Friday. It was very similar to ES, where we had that 54.32 box to 55.32, and we hadn't quite made it down to the 54.32 during the week, but then finally we got the rejection at ES 55.32 on Friday, and then we made the full move, right? So the same thing happened on NQ, and it did find some support. This was the week of, okay, no, this is last week's low. So it found some support just inside this box. And then after hours, the puke took us to kind of a line in the sand. And I will show you on QQQ what that looks like, because I think it's a little bit cleaner. But just below there we have 18,303, which is basically a target. It's not really meant to be support per se, more just a target for any kind of supports. I'd be looking. Structure wasn't quite as bad on NQ on the way up in this squeeze, so like maybe you've got some bids in like the 18,190 to 228 range, but probably coming down here into this 18,055, which if you've been here a while, you recall. I mean, this was just such a monster spot before the spring sell-off. It was a loss of that really triggered everything. And you can see how it became so key again back here in this range. And that's kind of what kept me from being super bearish during this week, as we kept holding 18,055 over and over again. So critical spot, potential for a little trap below here. And if we are getting below 17,850-ish, you get into the single prints from August 5th. And that's kind of like ES under, the 5190s. It can just spiral out of hand very fast. And NQ is, I mean, it's not really that far away from that. So that should definitely be a concern, because, if NQ gets absolutely disgusting, then there's a very, very good chance that ES is going to go with it. So definitely keep that on the radar. NQ at a critical juncture, ES critical juncture. Bulls need to step up like right now. So my old QQQ chart, like I haven't updated anything on here in ages really. So, you still have preservation of this island top I mean, this is a top. Like it's not. This isn't like, oh hey, 10% pullback, everything's fine. Like this is a top, and so we need to be really careful about getting too excited over QQQ names. Like there's going to be rallies, huge rally here, and it didn't get there, right? No new highs. This is just a lower high, right? So we basically kind of sniffed the top of this box, and I bet, if I look at NQ and do the extrapolation, then we'll see that the like Monday high of last week probably came right up in here into this spot, failed, liquidated back through this box, and now here we are coming into this kind of range, right, again. And the thing is, we've already cleared this out. We've already traded through it once, so it's not going to be quite as strong. 446 was the after hours low. Okay, exactly. And you can see the low of Friday, August 9th sits like just below there, right? And so to me, if I'm just purely looking at candles, and certainly it's a daily candle here, but like still we could drill into tighter frames, but I mean there's just not much in here, right? So we could come down, and like I don't even consider this 441 spot like very strong. It's just kind of like a minor horizontal that's come into play a couple of times. So definitely wary if we lose the after hours lows on NQ and ES. Disgusting SPX chart again, like haven't updated these box ranges in forever. So we had 5402, the spot that we worked against late on Friday for just a couple of reversion longs. But to me, again, if we gap below this or otherwise lose it, you run into the open of Tuesday, August 13th, which sits right at the top of kind of this old consolidation range here. So 53.75, the premium on ES right now is right around 10 handles. So that would correspond to our 53.85 spot. So absolutely critical for SPX to hold, say 53 or 53.75 and ES to hold 53.85. Otherwise, we can start working back down this box, into 53.25, which is right about 53.30-ish spot that we talked about on ES. So don't be surprised if I pull this out one day in the Discord and we're sitting here and we find it to be a key juncture. I mean, we've got I believe this is the 100 day, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's the 100, kind of sitting right at that 53.75, 85 on ES spot. The Tuesday the 13th open, as we mentioned. So kind of a big spot. Not a huge fan of the 100 day, but it certainly plays and it certainly is relevant. And we will see if we can at least hold this spot on SPX. So that's it for the video. Again, just kind of caution under 53.85 ES, and we'll just sort of play it day by day if we get some relief and trade higher first. But I will be looking for shorts until buyers actually prove something.